The first question is, if one is bedridden, cannot speak and move, will the person's thoughts generate any good or bad karma? I asked as I'm thinking one day I too might be bedridden and I cannot perform any physical dana, but I hope to send positive vibes and energy like I'm doing in the physical dana. Will think of the positive good deeds I have done and etc. will be counted as well?
Well, I hope that never happens to you or anyone else, but the important thing is the quality of your mind. I mean, if someone is bedridden, not moving, not speaking, the question is, how aware are they? Are they in a complete coma and the mind in a very kind of dull, blank state, maybe? Or perhaps they're just unable to move, but mentally they're still fully cognizant, fully able to think and be aware, maybe even aware through their senses. It all depends on the person and the situation, because I think we're talking about a hypothetical situation here. All the more reason why we should practice mindfulness and meditation now while we're healthy. One of the biggest factors and the biggest kinds of good fortune a human being can have is good health or reasonable health. So while you have reasonable health, use all your effort and time to practice the Dhamma, I would suggest. But unfortunately, as the Buddha pointed out, good health is also intoxicating. And as soon as we're healthy, we run around doing all kinds of foolish and frivolous things, and we don't practice very much. We don't train much in mindfulness, so we're not preparing for that day maybe when our health goes downhill. So if you can think of this hypothetical situation in your question, that's a sign you're thinking ahead and you're alert to some of the dangers and imperfections of life. Well, prepare yourself through the practice. And if you're caught in a situation where you're lying in bed, can't move, well, you can still use your mind if you're conscious and train in mindfulness. You can still have a thought of kindness, compassion, equanimity. You can be mindful. You can recollect the Buddha. You can chant. If you can't chant out loud, you may be able to chant in your mind. But you have to have learned a few chants. So learn a few chants now while your memory and your ability is there, so that maybe if you are bedridden later, you've got them at hand in your mind, in your memory. Every time you chant in praise of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, say, the most simplest chant we do as a Buddhist, Iti Piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho. It's like you're coming into the presence of the Buddha when you do that. You're recollecting the qualities of the Buddha, the wisdom, the compassion, the purity, the peace. You're recollecting the qualities of the Dhamma. You're recollecting the qualities of Sangha, enlightened Sangha. So it's like you're being with the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. You're venerating, you're bringing your mind to those qualities. So even if you were lying on a bed with some terrible illness, you could bring your mind to a very pure, peaceful place by internally reciting that with mindfulness. So there's always an option. If your mind is still active, you may be injured or paralyzed or ill, but if your mind is active, there's always a chance to practice Dhamma. You can always put forth effort. That's why Buddhism doesn't promote euthanasia or that kind of approach. It's more like use your situation, however bad it is, to practice. Put forth effort, struggle a bit, train your mind, bring up mindfulness, bring up insight into the impermanent nature of body and mind, the five khandhas, whatever your situation. So if you are ill, it will be pretty obvious that this body is full of suffering to be let go of. So while you're ill and lying there, practice letting go of your identification and attachment to the body. Keep doing it. And in a few cases, people have got enlightened when they've been lying in bed ill. it can happen because of the very painful feelings and difficulties of their situation prompts them to try harder in their practice. So it's possible. Everything is possible as long as you're still conscious and you can think and practice mindfulness. You've still got a chance to practice.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. How can one come to terms with the practice that kids are our Dhamma practice? Will Ajahn be able to expound on that?
Oh, the kids are our Dhamma practice. Well, if you have kids, that's a huge responsibility that you cannot possibly neglect. Once you've decided to have kids and they've been born, whether it's one or many, they become the center of your life because they have to be, because they're totally vulnerable, defenseless, and need to be educated and looked after and cared for. So that's why they become your Dhamma practice. Doesn't mean to say you spend every minute with them. There'll be times, especially as they get older, that they go to school and with other people, of course. So that's one thing. There will be times when you get a little bit of free time as time goes on. But still, they're your kids. You have to do this service for them. It's a kind of dana, isn't it? You're serving your kids by educating them, and partly it's teaching them the Dhamma, teaching them to be good human beings, teaching them to be moral, teaching them to understand karma. Whatever way you can, you try to give them some wisdom and right view. But as you teach them, you can also teach yourself. And as you look after them and go through the frustrations of bringing up kids, well, you can teach yourself, because they will almost certainly stimulate mental defilements in your mind. The irritation, the anger, the disappointments, the frustrations, your own selfishness may be exposed sometimes. So make the act of parenting and bringing up kids part of the practice. And especially when they're young, it will be a very full-on, complete kind of practice, because you can't get away from them while they're young. So just accept it. Accept that that's what your situation is, your karma is, but then use it to learn. Practice is about learning. You're learning about yourself. You're learning about how suffering arises and how to end it. You're teaching that to your kids as well. So you're learning as you teach them. You're learning from your own experience. So as long as you keep your mind open to learning, you can still practice the Dhamma even with young kids who are very demanding in time and noisy and all over the place. Of course, it's tiring, but you can still learn and practice. So that's what you have to do.
Sadhu, Lumpur. The next question. Does the mind ever go to sleep? In the conscious state, we can meditate to calm the mind, but we can't when we go to sleep. What causes dreams to occur?
The mind goes to sleep in the sense it goes to a state of unawakenedness at any time. When you lose your mindfulness, you start to get lost in daydreams already. Even if you're sitting here apparently awake, maybe right now listening to me, perhaps my voice sends you to sleep, I don't know. But if you're sitting here and your mind starts drifting off, you're already asleep, aren't you? You're not mindful anymore. Ajahn Chah used to say, it's like you've died, you're dead. You die for a few moments as you get lost in another train of thought, another daydream, another memory. And then at some moment you realize you were daydreaming, you bring your mind back to the present moment, maybe pay attention to what you're doing in the immediate present moment. So our mind is kind of going off, turning off all the time. And that's through our waking hours. When we go to sleep, then of course, quickly drifts off, or usually, depending if you're having insomnia, that's different. But usually your mind drifts off and you start to dream a bit quite often. stuff from your subconscious starts coming up. So it could be memories of things that happened in your day, problems and issues bothering you. And then you go into deep sleep where you're just blank and you don't know anything and don't remember anything and there's no dreams. Then you come out of deep sleep, and as you're coming out of deep sleep, you're waking up again. You may have dreams, some of which make sense, some don't. Some you remember, many you don't. And you may go from the dream state back into deep sleep, or you may fully wake up and start your day or whatever, carry on doing things in the more awakened state. But you can have micro sleep anytime and daydreaming and drifting off anytime. The only people who don't really dream are arahants, they say. But even an arahant will have nimittas sometimes, things coming up into their consciousness, premonitions or finding out about other people, about teaching other people, their state of mind and so on, or seeing beings in other realms and so on. Arahants may have nimittas, but they don't have dreams as such. Dreams, the Buddha pointed out, can be caused by a number of different things. One thing, very simple, very obvious, is just a lot of rich food. Rich food stirs you up and then gives you dreams. Eating a lot of rich food before you go to sleep is probably not a good idea. It'll make you fat, and also it will stir your mind up. Certainly, alcohol and intoxicants also. So different foodstuffs, even stimulants. So like people drink a lot of coffee, and coffee before they go to bed, they often have quite amazing dreams sometimes. So stimulants also make you dream. Other things are different kinds of attachment you have. So like a common one is you have a particular issue in your life. You're worried about something or you're angry about something. Well, it can prompt dreams, can't it? Depending on your spiritual practice, what kind of dreams you have and how you treat them and how you deal with them, that varies. But people who meditate sometimes have dreams, and often those dreams are telling them something. It's a time where the mind is going in and out of a state of deep sleep, and it's just a time where your own mind can give you some insight or intuitive knowledge about some aspect of your life, your practice. So some dreams can give us understanding, can help us, they can warn us or point out where we're going wrong in our thinking or creating suffering. So they come from a good place of wisdom sometimes. Sometimes they're just an expression of our own confusion, and they don't seem to have much meaning and don't give us wisdom. They're just saying you're really confused. Maybe you're very stressed about something. You're very tired, overtired, burnt out. Sometimes dreams can be stimulated by external sources. So if a person with a strong mind spreads metta, that can give you maybe an insightful or a meaningful dream. Or a deva spreads metta to you. So there are a number of reasons we have dreams. Sometimes it's premonition. Again, it's your own mind talking to you. And in the normal thinking state, especially if we think a lot and we're not that mindful, your own mind may know something, but you don't give it a chance. It's a bit like when there's somebody talking and they don't give you a chance to enter the conversation. They just keep talking. Our mind is like that, isn't it? Sometimes we're just thinking. And so our own deeper insights and intuitive understanding can't come up. They're waiting to come up, but we don't give them a chance. But as soon as your mind is still in meditation, you may have some insight arise, or when you're falling asleep or waking up, you may have a dream and your own mind tells you something. So premonition. Somebody was telling me this morning they were waiting to be pregnant. They wanted a baby and it hadn't happened for a few years. And then one night they had a dream of a Buddha giving them a baby. And then not long after that, they got pregnant. So sometimes dreams can be fortuitous, good luck, premonitions. Sometimes it's the other way around. Somebody you know is going to die, and you actually see them die in the dream before they die. All these things are possible because the mind is a very sensitive thing, and we sometimes are picking up on our own karma, other people's karma, things that are happening around us. As I said, people, particularly people who practice a spiritual path, they offer dana, they meditate, they often will have meaningful dreams. But I would say the number one important thing from your question is, practice a lot of mindfulness and don't let your mind just drift off into daydreaming fantasy all the time, because that's not very healthy for us. But we do it a lot. So try and improve your level of mindfulness.
Sadhu Lumpo. The next question. Dear Achan, I get to experience sometimes the split of the mind in my meditation, where one part of my mind is a bit agitated and I was peaceful with it. I didn't know how to turn into wisdom until you explained it today. Thank you for your explanation. How do I turn experience in meditation into wisdom?
We'll try to be mindful and observe. And observe with a purpose is to end suffering. So to help us put down the weight of the mind, the things we keep clinging onto. So how do you do that? Well, it's just seeing things as impermanent is a very common way that wisdom arises, isn't it? You see a thought is just temporary, it's impermanent, it arises, passes away. If you keep clinging to it, wanting, clinging, you get this heaviness of mind. And heaviness is heavy. It's unpleasant. The longer you keep a heavy weight, the worse you feel. If you're carrying a heavy bag, if you don't put it down, you just feel very tired, and it can damage you and hurt you after a while. So put it down. And the same in your mind. You're putting down the heaviness of the mind. Wisdom is that which sees the heaviness and sees what you have to do. See, oh, this is temporary, just let it go. This is not self, let it go. Seeing the three characteristics in your experience, seeing things as impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self, gives rise to wisdom. And that seeing of these three characteristics depends on the presence of mindfulness, clarity of awareness.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question. Dear Lumpo, once I accept everything as they are in this moment, then the mind has nothing to do. It does not have to grasp and resist. Since it accepts things as they are, then my mind becomes very peaceful and empty. Does this make sense?
Yeah, if your mind is experiencing peace and emptiness, just keep going, keep doing it. Yep. Simple answer. Keep doing it, keep practicing.
Sadhu Lumpo. The next question. During meditation, we are advised not to lean against the back of the chair. I noticed after a while I tend to be aware that my posture is not upright, but leaning forward, and so I correct it. When I correct it, watching the breath is interrupted. However, when I lean against the back of the chair, I can watch the breath more continuously. Can we lean a bit?
Okay, we'll allow you to lean a little bit. Special permission. And sometimes in meditation, there's room for experiment, flexibility, creative approaches, whatever works. And through the practice, you will learn and work out what works for you. So, I'm not sure who you are. Maybe as we get older, it's harder to maintain strong, upright postures, perhaps. So if you meditate and you need to lean on the chair, okay, try it. And if it works for you, fine. the main danger, that reason meditation instructors encourage you not to lean on things, is because it tends to make you careless with your posture, and it encourages sleepiness, drowsiness, not putting forth effort because you sort of slouch. But as I said, it could, if you have a health reason, or through aging, or just through your experience, the leaning on the back of a chair, if it's a reasonably firm chair, it's not going to be too comfortable and and doesn't lead you to indulge in sleep. Well, okay, use that. Leaning on the chair is okay. But your aim in the meditation is to be with the breath and come to the point where you're just with the peaceful mind and the breath, and you basically forget the body. The body becomes less important to your mind because you're now focused on the breath and the refined quality of knowing. That's your aim. So at some point, you just let go of the body. I understand what you say. Sometimes you notice you're leaning, so you correct yourself, but then you let go of the breath and you have to reestablish concentration. So it can be frustrating. And it's like that in the beginning, usually. There's a little bit of checking your body, your posture, and then you're back with the breath and back and forth. And it can be annoying. But after a while, you tend to settle down. Both your body gets used to the posture and can just sort of stick with it. And then your mind, it's just with the object, and you let the body go. And that's your aim. It's not to be constantly concerned about the body. You have your initial awareness, you've got into a posture that you can hold, you've held it before, you've done meditation before, and then you let go and don't bother about it. And it's not unusual if you sit for many hours. I mean, most people are not sitting for many hours, but if you do sit for many hours and your mind is peaceful, well, it's quite possible you'll start to slouch a bit for many hours if you're sitting, but it doesn't necessarily have to interrupt your samadhi. Your mind may be totally internalized and let go of the body. We're not meditating, to produce a nice photo for some meditation brochure or something. So if you can't maintain the perfect posture for 3 hours, I wouldn't worry too much. As long as you can sit still and get into the meditation, that's good enough. Posture will help, but it's not the only part of meditation. We have a statue behind me. You can't see it, I don't think, but it's of Lumpur Tuat, a monk who lived almost 300 years ago in Thailand, southern Thailand. He's supposed to be very wise, compassionate monk. The legend is, the myth is that he's an incarnation of Maitreya Buddha, the next Buddha. So obviously an amazing human being, a bodhisattva with amazing qualities. But you'll see the way he's sitting, the statue we've got, is supposed to be how he looked, okay? We don't know for sure because it's a long time ago, but apparently he sat like that. His posture doesn't look great, but he is an enlightened bodhisattva. So, there has to be a middle way here. I think, you get the best posture you can, but don't become so obsessive that it becomes an obstruction to your practice. Even great enlightened teachers or great bodhisattvas, they don't always have the best posture. They generally do have a very still, firm, solid posture generally, but sometimes they have a rounded back, or they have a bit of a kink, or they lean to the front, to the back. Human beings are different in their posture, so try not to make a big deal out of it, I'd say.
Sadhu Lumpur. Next question. May I know whether the desire of feeling good or peaceful after attending a Dhamma talk, a wholesome desire for one to yearn for?
Oh, well, it's more like something you just notice, isn't it? Sometimes the Dhamma is very refreshing, brings up faith, rapture, joy, and it's a good thing. But like you say, be careful if you're yearning for that. Say before the Dhamma talk, you're expecting it or wanting that, if it doesn't happen, then you may get disappointed, and that's suffering, isn't it? So you have to accept you may not always get the same blissful, joyful response from every Dhamma talk. And that would be putting a lot of pressure on the Dhamma speakers as well. You know, every time I've got to get people really high and blissful, and if I can't do that, then I'm no good at Dhamma teaching. You know, the purpose of Dhamma is to help us understand more deeply the truth and help us support us in our practice. And if joy and bliss arises, good, but it may not be the same every time. So try not to expect it or crave it. Like you say, it can become an attachment and a cause of suffering. So be on the lookout for that. But if it happens, fine. And that is a natural, wholesome result of listening to Dhamma. Sometimes you listen to Dhamma, and if it's a teacher who's, you know, maybe an enlightened teacher, you can sit there and you just go into samadhi, don't even hear the talk anymore. Ajahn Chah used to say, you know, listen with your heart. If you don't remember the words anymore, you've gone into samadhi, that's fine. And that's one value that can come from listening to the Dhamma, is that the factors, the hindrances to samadhi disappear. The Dhamma purifies your heart, and you go into a state of samadhi, and you may sit there not really hearing or concentrating on the words anymore. Now you're with the peaceful inner peace and happiness of that state of samadhi. One problem with that is maybe you're still sitting there deep in samadhi, and the talk finishes and everyone gets up and leaves, and then you're just sitting there. That has happened to me before in, you know, many years ago when I was living with other teachers. You know, I've had that experience, and so afterwards everyone is, hey, why has this monk not got up? Everyone else has bowed and left the hall, and this monk is still sitting there. So some people frown on you, but those in the know, they know what's happening. They say, oh, he's just in samadhi. So that has happened to me and to others. It can happen. But more likely is you just feel some joy, some interest, some joy from hearing the Dhamma. Maybe you learn something new, or you get a new insight on your own problems. Some of your darkness and the heavy weight is lifted, and so joy can arise. But don't crave it, because it won't happen every time.
Sadhu, Lumpur. Next question. For lay practitioners who have a slim chance of Sotapanna, is there a practice that they can do which will keep the momentum going on for the next life?
Yeah. Sila, Samadhi, Panya, the whole path. Keep developing it. Keep listening to the Dhamma. Keep offering dana. Keep the precepts, the 5 precepts. Keep listening to the Dhamma, reflecting on the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, re-establishing your faith in Buddha Dhamma Sangha. Keep practicing mindfulness. Keep recognizing when mental defilements arise and let them go when you notice them. Just keep doing it on a daily basis. Don't give up. Ajahn Chah said, you'll get something from your practice if you don't give up. Very simple, isn't it? You just don't give up. The danger in lay life, I mean, in the monastic life as well, but in lay life particularly, is distraction. Things pull your attention away from the path of practice. Family, work, entertainment, pleasure seeking, wrong views that you're exposed to, all kinds of stuff will pull your mind, pull your attention away from the practice. So you have to be disciplined and focused. Keep coming back to the good practice that you've learned before, that's worked before. If you've gained some experience in your practice, you just keep coming back to that. Dana, Sila, Bhavana, meditate every day, listen to the Dhamma regularly, practice dana regularly. You have, it's a regularity, a continuous practice is what you're aiming for. And of course, sometimes you have more free time, more of time and energy to practice, other times less, but just keep going. Don't give up. Some things that help, you reflect on the dangers of not practicing. If I don't practice, my mind is all over the place. My attachments get worse. Maybe I'll make more bad karma, hurt other people, hurt myself. I don't know when I'm going to die. Maybe I'll die young, so I better practice now. Whatever reflections help you to get more urgency in your practice, then bring those reflections up. As I said, listening to Dhamma, meeting with Kalyana Mitta, particularly Sangha. If you meet with Sangha regularly, they tend to spur you on in the practice. You get a boost in your practice. That can help. So there's many factors which will help you. But in the end, it's up to you not to quit, not to give up, not to stop. Just keep going and just do the best you can.
There are no further questions, Lumpo.
Okay, very nice talking to you tonight, and I wish you all well with your practice, and we'll meet again next time.